taken our time.
And they've just taken up our time. But players are ready. Let's head down to the feature match area for round 3 here from the Magic Online Championship. Hello and welcome to coverage of the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. And we are just about ready for round 3 action, where we've got Mike Sigrist sitting across from Daniel Grafensteiner. And this is a matchup I'm pretty excited actually to see this one, Luis, because the matchups we've had previously, especially in the last round, we had an Ant deck, an Ad Nauseam Tendrils deck, and those decks are really cool, but they're pretty complicated and they're kind of abstract to watch because so much of it happens in one fell swoop and a lot of it's sort of planning out and things in your hand. Well, this is going to be much more of a board state matchup here, as we've got the colorless Eldrazi deck, which is just an explosive version of what you would think of when you think of the newly printed Eldrazi. And in the hands of Daniel Grafensteiner, he's playing against Mike Sigrist. And Mike is on the Shardless Sultai deck, which is one of the premium mid-range decks in the format. And I think this is going to be a really fun one.
And you see, as we'll see with most of these hands, most of Daniel's hands, all the spells are going to be modern legal, if not standard legal. Look, there's 2 spells in hand, but Eldrazi Mimic and Matter Reshaper, both standard legal cards. The mana base is really the mana base is really where you see the difference.
Right. See a Wasteland there for him to complement a lot of the different 2-mana lands that he has in his deck as well.
But Sigrist has a very good start here because turn 1 Deathrite lets him, first of all, play either of his 2 drops, whether it's Baleful Strix or Tarmogoyf, through a Wasteland.
Ooh.
Well,
Dismember
does help, but you can't stop the Deathrite and the land. And it also, Deathrite is very good, if in an attrition game where you can gain some life, you can. There's not that many spells running around, but every now and then losing life is also relevant here. Mostly it's just for the mana, and that's where Deathrite really shines.
And it looks like Daniel is going to kick things off with a Dismember here just to take down the Deathrite Shaman. Dismember, of course, a premium removal spell. Sort of an all-timer. I mean, Dismember has to be on the short list of best removal spells ever, right?
Oh, for sure. It gives any color, or in this case, colorless, access to a premium kill spell. And 4 life is a cost, but it's a cost you're willing to pay.
He does so. Sigrist finds an Underground Sea on top of his library. Now he has to decide if he wants to play a Tarmogoyf, which is currently sitting at 2/3, or a Baleful Strix to draw a card.
And one advantage of playing Baleful Strix, besides drawing Force of Will, by the way, is that you're able to find something like a Shardless Agent to play on turn 3. Baleful Strix is an interesting card. It got printed in one of the supplementary products, and as such, it's legal in Legacy and Vintage. So you couldn't, this card is a bit too powerful for, say, Standard or Modern, but it fits very nicely into Legacy, and I think it plays quite well.
God, I love that card too. It's just so sweet.
Yeah. So here we're seeing the synergy between Eye of Ugin and Eldrazi, where Eye makes both Matter Reshaper and Eldrazi Mimic cost 2 colorless, or 2 generic less, rather. So Mimic costs 0 mana, and Matter Reshaper costs just 1 colorless mana, which the Wasteland pays for.
Thoughtseize is off the top now for Sigrist. That could allow him to clear away the Thought-Knot Seer.
And
you've got a thought fight here.
Right. And one reason to cast Thoughtseize now is that that Daniel's going to be able to dump his hand next turn. This is the last turn where you're going to really hit a relevant card. So Thoughtseize and Sigrist just making sure he knows what the 2 lands are just for future bookkeeping. Taking the Thought-Knot Seer and then playing another card, though. At this point, the Tarmogoyf is large enough that it can stop Daniel's offense, so there's a good incentive to play a Tarmogoyf here. Another reason to play Tarmogoyf over Baleful Strix would be that Baleful Strix is a blue card, so you can use it to alternate cast Force of Will. Interesting
to see also that there's a Toxic Deluge in hand down there. Another card that we don't have, in Modern.
Toxic Deluge, very powerful. 2 black sorcery. You pay X life as an additional cost, and then all creatures get -X/-X. So
Love that card.
it's a good combo with Tarmogoyf because Tarmogoyf is big enough to survive most deluges. So like if you imagine Daniel plays another like medium-sized Eldrazi, like another Matter Reshaper or Mimic, then Deluge can wipe all the Eldrazi plus the Baleful Strix off the board, leaving Tarmogoyf standing. He's even getting in with the Baleful Strix.
Hey.
The only risk here is that if Daniel draws a Reality Smasher, all of a sudden the Mimic and the Smasher come over for a cool 10 damage.
Oof. He didn't, though. He found perhaps not the most timely Chalice of the Void here.
No, Chalice of the Void is actually interesting in this matchup. And remember, players have deck lists.
Mm-hmm.
So Daniel knows that if he plays a Chalice of the Void for 0, then he's able to prevent future Ancestral Visions from getting cast. If he plays Chalice of the Void for 1, he cuts off cards like Brainstorm and future Deathrite Shamans. Chalice of the Void for 2, which he can't cast this turn because Chalice of the Void costs XX, would stop Tarmogoyf and Baleful Strix, so that would be appealing as well. But whether Daniel wants to wait an additional turn, that's something he has to decide now. I would expect Daniel to play Cavern of Souls this turn, and because Daniel's the one who's actually short on lands here, he's a little behind because the Eye of Ugin doesn't actually tap for mana. Wasteland is not looking as appealing as it would be if he had a good board presence and was ahead on lands.
Yeah, things are looking good for Sigrist here. He's just sort of plotted his way through this game, and it seems like he's been ahead at each stretch. There's City of Traders there for Grafenstein.
Interesting. So it looks like he is looking to use this Wasteland here. Otherwise, you would play the Cavern of Souls and just cast Chalice by tapping Cavern and Wasteland. So now it looks like Grafensteiner's just going very aggressive, playing a Chalice and then immediately casting or using a Wasteland. Sigrist could Force of Will this, but he has to balance, how many 1-drops am I really going to draw here? He's got just Brainstorms and Deathrights left.
Is that all?
That's what it looks like. So
there's no Ponders for him?
He does not. No, this deck typically doesn't play Ponder because it doesn't want to dilute its Shardless Agent. When it casts Shardless Agent and Cascades, it doesn't want to do that. So Chalice of the Void with 1 counter on it now. Anytime any player plays a spell that converts a mana cost of 1 exactly, it gets countered. Note the mini combo of Cavern of Souls plus Chalice of the Void. If you can cast spells or creatures into your own Chalice with Cavern and they're uncounterable.
Pretty sweet.
Though there aren't any 1-drops anyway,
but
if he played a Chalice for 2, for example, if Daniel played a Chalice for 2, it would be funny that the interaction between Eye of Ugin and Cavern of Souls actually means that Daniel could not play Eldrazi Mimic with Cavern mana with an Eye of Ugin in play because it just costs 0 mana.
That's funny.
So, as expected, the Wasteland reduces Sigrist down to just 2 mana, but now he has a 3rd. In fact, Sigrist has plenty of mana, so I think Sigrist is feeling pretty good about this. If you want to take a look at City of Traders here, it's a very powerful land, but it has a drawback. When you play another land, you sacrifice it, so you typically want this to be your last land. So now Daniel, if he wants to play like a 5-mana Eldrazi, like a Reality Smasher, he has to play the Cavern of Souls, which will make him sacrifice City of Traders. So that power comes at a very real cost.
Sigrist looks like he's weighing his options on playing a Baleful Strix or keeping it in his hand for future Force of Will.
Yeah, I like playing it.
Me too.
Part of the reason is you have Toxic Deluge even if something goes very wrong, and you're able to just find something like a Shardless Agent or even an Ancestral Visions would be a good card to suspend here.
He really just doesn't want to see like Reality Smashers, right?
Yeah, that's the most dangerous card.
All right. Another City of Traders off the top there for Daniel. Not what he wants to see at this point in the game. He needs action.
Yeah, not only does he need action, like drawing lands with a City of Traders in play is just you can't even develop your mana base here. I mean, at some point Daniel might consider playing the Cavern and then playing the second city, but wow. Wasteland is a very punishing card against City of Traders as well, because I think Sigrist has a pretty big incentive to Wasteland Eye of Ugin here, leaving Daniel with just City of Traders in play and unable to cast very much. The one fear is that if Daniel had double Eye of Ugin, because it's legendary, if you're Wastelanding it, you're just activating the second one.
Yeah. And what you'll see for the most part, especially with only 2 cards in hand for Grafensteiner, is that, you tap your City of Traders, then you play your second City of Traders, and then you tap that one, and you've generated 4 mana in that one turn. Now, it's cost you your land drop and a land to do it, but, Sigrist is getting in there.
So one reason
He's
to
got an Abrupt Decay.
attack with Tarmogoyf, exactly, Abrupt Decay. So if
this is great combat tricks, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's very dangerous is if you look at the graveyards, there's no artifact in the graveyard it. So Abrupt Decay wouldn't actually kill one
Correct.
of the two blockers if they double blocked. It would just kill the Chalice of the Void.
Right.
And that would give Sigrist a fairly sizable advantage here. So the other option is to just chump block with Matter Reshaper, but I like throwing in the Mimic. Even if things don't go well, remember that Daniel's going to get that Matter Reshaper trigger.
Right.
So when Matter Reshaper dies, he gets to flip his top card, either put it into play if it costs 3 or less, or put it into his hand.
This is so different than our last match, by
Yeah,
the way.
It is.
We have
very
double
different.
blocks into removal spells, where the last one was
Last one was
brainstorms
a bunch
and-
of very interesting turns where no spells were cast.
Right.
So let's see.
So you think he's going to go for the Chalice here?
I think Abrupt Decay and the Chalice ends up being the most fruitful overall line of play, just because it lets you kill the Chalice and kill the two creatures, and your Goyf survives.
Yeah, that's exactly what he does. So Abrupt Decay is going to take down the Chalice. Now the Goyf is going to jump up to a 5/6 thanks to that artifact hitting the graveyard.
So-
And it's bigger to win combat.
So it was a 3-for-1, except Matter Reshaper then trigger. So still a 2-for-1, but Matter Reshaper flips into an Eldrazi Mimic, so
Right.
we're kind of back where we started here. And now Sigrist deciding whether he wants to use the Wasteland. I like Wastelanding Ivug, and I like putting City of Traders as the only land in my opponent's side of the battlefield.
Yeah, there's an Urborg off the top. So just a string of lands here for Daniel after he played that City of Traders a few turns ago, and things have really spiraled out of control for him here. Doesn't seem likely that he's going to be able to come back from this position.
No, and remember, Daniel mulliganed this game, and the only Eldrazi he drew were 2 Mimics and a Matter Reshaper,
Yeah.
plus a Thought Knot that got Thought Seized.
Right.
So he had some threats, but Sigrist was able to use his removal and
Jeez.
kind of clear those out.
Does he even bother playing the Shardless Agent, or is it more valuable in hand for Force of Will here?
I would actually be tempted to just keep it in hand, I think, because if you attack for 7 damage, putting Daniel down to 5, he can play 1 spell at most next turn, and then you can just Force of Will it. That sounds pretty reasonable. Also, looking at deck lists, so many of the cards in Daniel's deck are not good when you're behind here. You have cards like
yeah.
Thorn of Amethyst, right? That makes all
Oh, God.
non-creature spells
Yeah.
cost 2 more.
Another
Like
Chalice, yeah.
another Chalice. Like these are great cards, but they're not cards that'll get you out of this position. And
Oh, no. Yeah, this draw has really just been terrible.
more
here
and
for
more
Griffin.
traitorous lands here.
Yeah, and he's seen enough of it. So Mike Sigrist is going to take down game 1 here. And, yeah, I enjoyed this. This is a cool matchup.
So looking at sideboarding, Daniel's got 2 copies of Umezawa's Jite, so that's the kind of card you would expect to be relevant in this creature versus creature brawl, which is again
Yeah.
a little different than what we saw the last couple rounds, which kind of shows off the depth of Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Sigrist has another copy of Baleful Strix, and if he wants a Toxic Deluge, that could also be reasonable. Maelstrom Pulse is not unreasonable either. Just both players are siding in their like mid-range removal cards and trying to figure out how to best deal with the opposing threats. You actually see Sigrist trimming on Ancestral Visions potentially, and one reason to do that would be Chalice of the Void. Spreading out your casting costs against Chalice of the Void is very good, because that means that even if they Chalice, like say 0 for Visions or 1 for Brainstorm, you're not too heavily impacted, and that makes Chalice of the Void a little less effective, though still a solid card.
You can also see that the players are consulting deck lists here. They do have their opponent's deck list available. That was made available to them after the first round of play, just in the interest of fairness, since we are showing some of the matches here on the stream.
Yeah, and it's such a small field too. Like,
Yeah.
At a Pro Tour, for example, even if someone's featured round 1, like it's very difficult in the tournament to go like try to figure out exactly what went on. But in this stream, especially with being able to watch replays or what have you, it is in the interest of fairness, showing deck lists I think is much improved.
Does make sideboarding a much more specific art form here.
Well, when you have perfect information,
Yeah.
sideboarding, it gets more precise. It doesn't get easier.
No, it
You-
sometimes opens up the leveling games that
Yeah.
we'll see.
Though in this case, I think the matchup is relatively straightforward. Like Dismember and GTA are good.
Yeah.
And then cards like Thorn of Amethyst a little less impressive.
I just want to see a Jace the Mind Sculptor. I haven't seen him in a while.
Well, we've seen 2 matchups. 2 of our 3 feature matches have had Jace in one of the
Yeah,
decks.
and neither have been drawn.
Yeah.
Nobody's drawn one yet. Which of these 2 decks would you have chosen if you had beaten Oliver too.
That is a false dichotomy. There are more decks than these two.
I know. I'm asking you for these two.
I would have played probably the Sultai deck.
You like that deck?
It's doing a lot of things I like.
A lot of value.
I like playing Ancestral Visions. I like playing Deathrite Shaman. I like playing Force of Will. I think when it comes to the, force versus non-force side in Legacy, last time I chose Force of Will, I played Miracles at the last Grand Prix, but I think I actually might play Ad Nauseam, the deck Sam is playing, and that was the list I actually recommended to him like a week ago.
That's if I had opened up the entire field full of decks to you, but I didn't. So
yeah. Also, that's if I had beat Oliver too, which it has not happened yet.
I qualified it. Yeah.
Both in the past or future.
Ooh, there's a Jace.
There is a Jace. There's only one land though.
Okay.
So Sigrist is now. It's currently on him deciding whether he wants to mulligan, whereas Daniel already mulliganed to 6, and I assume we'll keep this hand, though. Wow, it is not. The Eldrazi deck is not showing off its prowess.
It is really not. You got to kind of feel for Daniel. He's got to fight through some pretty rough draws here if he's going to beat Sigrist. And on top of that, he's playing Mike Sigrist, right? Like, he's already tough enough to beat. Looks like Mike's going to mulligan that one-lander, though.
Yeah, to a much more stable
nice
6-card hand. It looks like Daniel is mulliganing to 5, though. This 5, that's a turn 2 Thought-Knots here.
Okay. Yeah, and he'll have a Dismember for the Deathrite Shaman there too.
Mike Sigrist, along with Brad Nelson, among the most feared constructed players on the Pro Tour.
Is that the only thing he has in common with Brad Nelson?
Yeah, I just was just saying that
apropos of
their constructed win percentages are both very high.
Understood.
So Daniel gets to throw away a lot of resources to cast this turn 2 Thought Knot, but a turn 2 Thought Knot is pretty effective.
Yeah, and it will probably be into a pretty empty board here. Like, if you look at how this plays out, looks pretty good for Daniel, at least if he can find something to back up the Thought Knots here.
So Sigrist is going to
has to take the pulse here.
Well, Sigrist is going to play a turn 1 Deathrite.
It's going to get killed.
Presumably, Daniel's going to dismember it here.
That's what I'm assuming too.
And then turn 2 go Lotus Petal, City of Traders, Thought Knots here.
Right.
Kind of priced into taking Maelstrom Pulse, like you said, and then hope your Thought Knot is big enough to fight Tarmogoyf. But the problem is, there's already going to be instant creature artifact and then land in a second. So Tarmogoyf's just going to be bigger than Thought Knot.
Man.
Daniel might have to just take the Tarmogoyf.
Then he just loses Thought Knot Seer, and how does he win that game?
Not easily, but this, I mean, you're casting a 4/4 here, and your opponent has a 4/5 and a removal spell. So it's not like you have a clear path to victory.
Right.
The one of the reasons to take the Goyf is, well, it's because he had to sacrifice Lotus Petal, Daniel's actually not able to play a follow-up Thought Knot if he drew one. So I guess taking Maelstrom Pulse and then hoping to draw Dismember might be...
Yeah, that might be it.
Might be our best chance. Or take Tarmogoyf and then... Oh, the Wasteland doesn't even work. I wanted him to use a Wasteland to keep Mike off 3 mana, but Mike just goes Polluted Delta go. Has a basic land in a Polluted Delta and plane is not able to be hit by Wasteland. So Thought Knot Seer looking at a pretty tough choice
crazy,
here.
Right? It's so important. Like, if Mike were just to be like, Tropical Island, go, it just totally changes how this game plays out potentially.
Right, but unfortunately for Daniel, he knows that Mike's not going to fall into that trap.
Yeah,
so
he cannot plan on that.
Taking Tarmogoyf has the highest upside because you're cutting off Mike from playing a 2-drop, and then next turn maybe
tying up his mana.
Playing something else and then attacking, and hoping and then he has 2 3s in hand. In general, leaving your opponent with 2 3 casting cost cards is better than leaving with a 2-mana card and a 3-mana card. But because Dismember isn't out to Tarmogoyf, it's very tempting to just take the Maelstrom Pulse and hope to draw Dismember for the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, he took the Pulse. All right.
The other upside here is that Mike has to play Tropical Island and expose it to Wasteland in order to play Goyf, though Mike drew a Baleful Strix. This is another card that's just great in this situation.
Wow.
This matchup is not looking great for Daniel. He's had to mulligan to 6 and 5, and then Mike has just drawn the cards that trade 1-for-1 for his Eldrazi, or in this case 2-for-1, because the Strix draws a card when you play it.
Now, it looks like he might expose the Tropical Island here, though, to not have to crack the Polluted Delta.
Right, and Polluted Delta protects from Wasteland before it's sacrificed, but once it's sacrificed, it's no longer going to, because Mike doesn't have a basic island.
Oh, he doesn't have
a basic island? He's got one basic swamp, exactly. Yeah, these multicolored decks
that's his only basic.
Yeah, do not play a lot of basics.
Oh, man. Well, how does a Reality Smasher change the equation here? He can't cast it for at least a turn, though it will trump even the Tarmogoyf, right?
Reality Smasher is big enough that it will
Okay.
go over the top of Tarmogoyf.
It's 3-4
But
right now.
Daniel is too colorless short of playing it, so
Right.
he might want to just play Eldrazi Mimic, pass the turn, and just hope to draw 2 mana land and play Smasher. I don't even know if he can afford to use the Wasteland here. Between Lotus Petal and City of Traders, Daniel's deck, it trades long-term resources for short-term gains, and Sigrist is doing a good job of forcing this games long.
Yeah, and he's got all the tools he needs here as well. He now has 2 copies of Shardless Agent in his hand. He's got the Abrupt Decay he could use on the Mimic if he feels like he needs to, but that Baleful Strix was such a nice draw for Sigrist. It's just sitting there holding back that Thought-Knot Seer.
And at some point, each of these Shardless Agents is going to draw an extra card, essentially, off Cascade. Eventually, like Mike's long-term prospects are very good. He's drawing extra cards. He's got 3 lands in play.
It looks like we're going to get to see a Shardless Agent right now, too.
Whereas Daniel is not quite as optimistic. So Shardless Agent, Cascade, spins the wheel and finds Tarmogoyf.
He found a Tarmogoyf with it anyway. My goodness, you take a look at Shardless Agent. For those of you that are into Legacy, I know that Lee Sharp from Magic Online, the Magic Online team at Wizards of the Coast, had a chat with Richard Hagen, who's on site producing this show, and we're going to get a chance to hear from them kind of on our little lunch break halftime thing today. So I know that Legacy players will want to tune into that.
So Daniel has a unique opportunity here. Is he can essentially cast the card Armageddon, which puts all lands into the graveyard. He can play Wasteland both of Sigrist's Tropical Islands, lose the City of Traders in the process. Then the battlefield will go from having 5 lands in play to having 1.
So it'll be basic Swamp for Sigrist, and that's it.
Though, for those, trained in the classical use of Armageddon, you're supposed to cast it when you're ahead, not when you're behind. so I think Daniel is going to refrain from doing so for that reason.
All right. Baleful Strix is coming in.
Along with the Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf's offering up the trade here, but Daniel's not willing to trade a Thought-Knot Seer for it. And then we're going to see a second Tarmogoyf plus a Deathrite Shaman. So, yeah, Sigrist is just quickly flooding the board with 2 mana 4/5s. Even an Ancient Tomb, which, again, does tap for 2 colorless mana and can allow Daniel to play this Reality Smasher. The Reality Smasher Go is one of the least fun plays.
Terrible feeling.
I played some Eldrazi when it was legal and modern, and
yeah, you did.
I don't think I had very many untapped Reality Smashers at the end of my turn.
Yeah, after doing coverage of that Pro Tour, most of them entered the battlefield tapped and attacking, in my experience.
Oh yeah, sometimes I don't even know if I put it in untapped. I think I just
Yeah.
But Reality Smasher does come down. All 5/5 trample haste of it, and it's going to make this Mimic into a 5/5, so the Mimic can at least attack, because it's not like it's getting that much better on blockers.
Right, so that's something. We'll likely get Daniel in for 5 damage to drop Sigrist down to 14 here, but does not look good for Grafensteiner.
Sigrist can follow up by, at the very least, attacking with just Baleful Strix, but also setting up, another Shardless Agent, starting to use Deathrite Shaman, and Grafensteiner's on a Wasteland and an Ancient Tomb that costs him life. So Ancient Tomb, obviously very, very powerful card, taps for 2 colorless mana, but when you're at 8, the drawback starts to add up.
Oh, there's a Thoughtseize for Sigrist. Doesn't look super sweet here.
No, but I think it is going to make these Goyfs even bigger.
Is there no sorcery yet?
So that
Yeah, you are correct,
That
Luis.
is a critical draw. So
Yeah.
now the Tarmogoyfs can attack past the Reality Smasher. So Sigrist was very happy to draw 1 black, lose 2 life sorcery.
Right.
No other effect.
And you're pretty far ahead when that's the scenario. So this is a lethal attack from Sigrist. It's going to force a chump block of some sort, or at least a trade if he wants to double block.
So Daniel's basically forced to double block
It's
because
been a
that's just
tough one
better
for
than just
Daniel.
chumping. Sigrist actually looking whether he can afford to attack with this Shardless Agent as well. And potentially the Baleful Strix. It looks like he's going to leave the Shardless Agent. No, he's sending it in because if Daniel wants to block Shardless Agent, then he's forced to chump Tarmogoyf instead of double blocking it. So kind of like the Shardless Agent attack. Actually, if you attack with everything, then that forces a chump plus a block on Shardless Agent. You deal 6. The problem is Sigrist doesn't want to end up in a position where Reality Smasher plus Mimic attack for lethal next turn. So he has to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Sigrist feels pretty good, though. With the Deathrite Shaman back to block, maybe even gain some life, and with this attack forcing the issue on Grafensteiner, it's just going to be very difficult for him to navigate this. Remember, any Reality Smashers drawn also are going to necessitate Ancient Tomb being tapped.
Well, and actually, Sigrist knows that because the Thoughtseize actually had an effect. He got to look at Daniel's hand. He knows he can't be attacked by a new Reality Smasher next turn. There's no draw that lets Daniel draw a Reality Smasher and an extra mana to cast it.
Right. Yeah, you can see Daniel in the upper left. He's kind of awaiting his fate, and this is the.
This is just one of those games, you know.
Yeah. This is where Sigrid's like, you could concede.
Well, the thing is, Daniel can't concede. He needs to play this out.
Of course.
But he knows that he's not going to win.
Right.
Or, he's very unlikely to. Strange things would have to happen. He's forced to chump here, go down to 2. Can't even tap Ancient Tomb anymore.
No.
And then the Thought-Knot Seer dying will draw Sigrist a card here. Deathrite Shaman is 1 black mana source short of being lethal here because it can't actually make Daniel lose 2 life. But, of course, it will be lethal next turn.
Right, he could also just hit a black mana source here, right?
He does get to draw a card off Thought-Knot, so yeah, he could hit a black mana source, and then that will...
Well, he missed.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's what Sigrist's going to do now. I think he's going to,
say go.
Probably say go and leave up Abrupt Decay for the Eldrazi Mimic just in case, though.
Mm-hmm.
He could also cast Shardless Agent, and that would also likely win him the game. This Sigrist is deep in the territory of like, all right, got to look at deck lists. How can I possibly win this? Is there some strange card I didn't consider?
How could I possibly lose this?
Or rather, lose this, yeah. Is there some strange card I didn't consider? What can Daniel do? It's making sure your 99% is actually 100%er and trying to figure out if there's a 1% there that you can actually lose. So it looks deliberate, but Sigrist has to make sure.
He does. It's just an extension of the mentality that players like Mike Sigrist and I'm sure Daniel Grafensteiner have, which is that they're faced with a decision. They're going to make the decision that gives them the best chance to win, even if the difference is 99.5 and 99%.
So Shardless into Deathrite means that Sigrist's got plenty of blockers.
Yeah, take a look.
I really hope that Daniel just taps this Ancient Tomb.
Goes out on his own terms. I don't hate the idea.
He's gonna make the earlier play, kill all the lands.
I like this. Wasteland, tap my Ancient Tomb. Yes.
Yep. But there he goes.
Boy, Daniel. There you go. A big smile from him, and good sportsman, because that was a tough one. Like, let's not beat around the bush. Like, he had mulligans. He had a pretty rough draw in the first one, followed up by mulligans. That was not easy for Grafensteiner there, and he does pick up the loss against Mike Sigrist. And they're out of there.
that was faster than their
match.
match.
I can tell you that we are heading into lunch here at some point, and they maybe got whiff of that and ran off to go find some lunch. Welcome back to the booth here at the Magic Online Championship. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. That's Luis Scott Vargas. We've also got Kenji Egashira and Brian David Marshall on site, and I can tell you that Kenji is in the red zone with some replay matches ready for us right now.
Hey guys, Kenji Egashira back in the red zone. Red rocks me. We've got some sweet matches that have finished up. We're going to go between Magnus Lanto and Jonathan Angelescu. Omnitel versus the Lands deck. Our match is ready. Let's go through this now. And I'm not going to lie, this one is actually fairly quick. Magnus with Grove of the Burn Willows. Jonathan with a fairly fast start of Ponder into Lotus Petal. A Wasteland takes care of the Volcanic Island. But as you can see in the next few turns here, it is going to be very quick. Rashad Port not very good versus Scalding Tarn. Of course, he can sacrifice it and then still have an untapped land. Lanto has a Dark Depths, which is one of the core pieces of his deck, of course, trying to find that Thespian stage to go off. But Jonathan with some nice counter magic for the Life from the Loam. Wasteland the hit here. And as lands does, its lands act as spells, and he's just continuing to develop his board out, but he still doesn't have a Thespian stage, one getting in the bin from a Wasteland earlier. But Omniscience hits the battlefield for Jonathan, and he's able to cast all of these spells for free. You see Emrakul hit the battlefield, Griselbrand, and of course he is casting that Emrakul, so he's going to take an extra turn. Maze of Ith, no match for the Emrakul, and we're going to go to a game 2. Jonathan up a game. Game 2 here between these players. And this one is blazing fast just as well. Magnus with a turn 1 exploration into a taiga. But Jonathan has City of Traders, Lotus Petal, for a turn 1 show and tell into a turn 1 Griselbrand. All Magnus can do is develop out a Maze of Ith, but Griselbrand, of course, doesn't need to attack to do its job. Pays some life, draws some cards, and we have another show and tell. This is turn 2, by the way. Turn 1 Griselbrand, turn 2 show and tell, Omniscience, Emrakul, take an extra turn, and with that, Magnus is going to concede the game. Magnus falls down to 2-1. Jonathan wins his match here versus Magnus. I have another match queued up if we want to just jump right back down.
You know, Kenji, I've actually got a live match
oh, awesome.
over
okay.
here, so I might steal that from
Sure.
you here so we can head back and watch Game 3, where this is the last match going to. So let's head down. We've got Mitchell Manders versus Peter Ye, and they are in their third game, and we can see there's already an Insectile Aberration. That is, of course, the other side of a Delver of Secrets. And it's attacking, and conveniently, Mitchell's at 9 life here, so a 3-turn clock could be pretty quick. There's also a Pithing Needle naming Sneak Attack. That gives us an idea for what the matchup is, Luis.
Yeah, we've got Sneak and Show against the Grixis Delver deck that we actually saw play last round here.
Right.
And this is the kind of typical of the long games of Sneak and Show against Delver, where Delver's got a lot of disruption, and Sneak and Show, it's trying to assemble these 2-card combos, whether it's Sneak Attack plus Emrakul or Griselbrand, or Show and Tell plus Emrakul or Griselbrand. And that leaves Sneak and Show in a space where sometimes it's cards, if they don't have the second piece of the combo, or if you have a card like Sneak Attack named with Needle, you just have like cards like Emrakul in your hand and Griselbrand in your hand, so you're less well suited to play a long game against a deck like Delver, where all the cards are live at all points. Got Brainstorm get Spell Pierced there.
Uh-oh. Here comes Lotus Petal. Nothing else it looks like for Mitchell.
And Mitchell's on 4 cards in hand, so you need to think, like, with a City of Traders in play, he may not have wanted to play extra lands. He might have, like, 1 or 2 of the creatures in his hand, a card like Force of Will. So it's trying to figure out, like, how close is he to comboing? How much do I have to worry about that? Whereas Peter here is on 2 cards, going up to 5 off the Brainstorm, having to put 2 back, of course. All he really needs to do is assemble cards like Cabal Therapy or other counterspells. Though cards like Spell Piercing Days do lose value, as Mitchell has 6 lands in play.
Yeah, you got to love Peter's spot here, right? I mean,
he should be feeling pretty good about this.
like, we don't know his hand, but
Especially if he's going to go Gitaxian Probe, particularly the Cabal Therapy, then I think we're going to end up, with him significantly far ahead. Cabal Therapy, a pretty good choice in this field, it looks like. I mean, Peter did end up losing to Sam playing Ad Nauseam Tendrils last round, but even then, Cabal Therapy, I'd rather have the Cabal Therapy version of Delver against that deck than most other versions. So Peter just two attacks away from winning the game here. And that really forces Mitchell to either assemble a combo or play something like a Pyroblast, which some of these decks do play in their sideboard here. And I'm taking a look at Mitchell's hand. He's actually got Emrakul, Griselbrand, and 2 lands.
Oh,
no. So that is, in fact, where he's at here.
And Peter just saw that, right? He knows
Peter
all of those
did
things?
see that with Gitaxian Probe, yes.
All right.
So Mitchell really needs to find, and it can't be Sneak Attack, find show and tell because sneak attack won't do it thanks to the Pithing Needle.
Yeah. You gonna take a look at Peter's hand?
Yeah, let's go ahead and see what he's working with. And currently he's looking at Mitchell's deck list here. And we're taking a look at what Peter's doing right now, and he took a screenshot of what was in Mitchell's hand, so he's trying to figure out exactly what's going on.
Yeah,
here.
your screen kind of looks like a coverage-ception over here. Like there's screenshots of our.
and then
This is confusing.
Painful Truths and Cabal Therapy are what Peter's working with, which puts him in an interesting spot too. So he could Cabal Therapy one of the two big creatures, but he's unable to get both unless he sacrifices the Delver. He can also cast Painful Truths for 2 here, and that looks like what he's going to do.
All right. So he's going to cast Painful Truths.
Find Daze in Misty Rainforest, which don't actually end up affecting this next turn because Mitchell has so much mana that Daze is not going to do it. Though a draw of Lotus Petal from Mitchell, he's not actually that far away from hardcasting Gristlebrand. He's just 2 black short, but it would take 2 more Lotus Petals in order to get that going.
Did he not play a land for the turn?
No, he's got the City of Traders in play, so he doesn't want to end up losing his land here. I like the all Portal 3 Kingdoms lands.
I was going to ask you if you approved.
Oh, I noticed and approve.
Do you approve of this?
I like those islands.
I don't know.
It's simplistic art style.
It's very simplistic, yes.
So, Delver of Secrets is going to, or rather Insectal Aberration, is going to take Mitchell down to 3. He's going to have to top deck sneak attack. And Peter has to decide which creature he would rather face off against.
It looks like Peter's going to make that City of Traders decision a little easier by just wastelanding it here.
And part of the advantage of doing that is it makes your days a little bit better. So again, Mitchell has enough mana that it's not a super relevant change.
Yeah, and of course, from Peter's perspective here, we have to remember he's got him down to 3, right? So like this is just him basically saying, "I need this to stay the same for another turn." This is second. So he's pondering, and he sees Daze, Flooded Strand, Polluted Delta.
Right, which I would imagine you could shuffle away because even the 2 Dazes combined can't stop a sneak attack, or a show and tell, rather. Gurmag Angler, a pretty relevant draw here.
He drew a Gurmag Angler?
So what that means is that
It's interesting.
Is that Peter can now Cabal Therapy name Gristlebrand or Emrakul, and then flashback Cabal Therapy, name the other one, and then just play Gurmag Angler, and then have that be your finisher.
Okay.
And it means that or show and tell is not a relevant draw here. Looks like Gristlebrand, unless Grid Monitor is what Peter's looking to take down.
Unless what? Are you watching his screen or something?
Yeah, he typed in. Well, to get to Gristlebrand, you have to go through Grid Monitor first.
He looks like he skipped past
In your
that.
preparations for this coverage, do you know what Grid Monitor does?
I do not know.
It's a 4-mana 4/6 that says you can't cast creatures.
Oh.
It was actually an interesting
That's
limited
kinda-
card. I
that's
liked
kinda
it
cool
because I didn't have any creatures in my deck anyway, so it was just 4-mana 4/6.
Just another Grid Monitor?
Yeah. So here comes Gurmag Angler, and then looks like Peter's not going to flashback the Cabal Therapy. The thing is, show and tell into an Emrakul doesn't actually stop lethal here either. So as long as you got the Gristlebrand, you don't need to flash it back. So
yeah, and that does it. So Peter, he's playing his Rug Delver deck, or excuse me, Grixis Delver deck. Gets the job done. Picked up that loss that you mentioned to Sam Black in the last round, but he got there this time. So nice work for him, and that will wrap things up here for the legacy portion. We're 3 rounds in here, and that's going to do it for round 3 here from the Magic Online Championship.